Chemical reactions and equations. This video gives you a basic idea to write chemical equations. Learning objectives. The type of changes taking place around us. Terminology and symbols used in writing the chemical equations. Definitions of chemical reactions, chemical equations, rate, coefficient, equilibrium, etc. And changes involved in chemical reactions. In general, the changes taking place around us can be classified into two types: physical change and chemical change. Physical changes. Physical changes are reversible and no new substances are formed. Change of matter without changing its chemical composition takes place. Example, freezing of water. Chemical changes. Chemical changes are irreversible and new substances are formed. Change of matter with entire change in its chemical composition as well as properties. Example, digestion of food. Chemical change involves in change in strain, change of color, change in temperature, formation of precipitate, and evolution of gas. Basic terminology used in writing the chemical equations. Reactant. A substance that takes place in a chemical reaction and undergoes a change is called as reactants. Product. The substances that are formed at the end of a chemical reaction are called as products. Magnesium and oxygen is a reactant and magnesium oxide is the product. In general, the reactants are written at the left side of the arrow mark and products are written at the right side of the arrow mark. An arrow mark usually separates the reactant and the products. Reactants are written at the left side of the arrow mark, whereas the products are written at the right side of the arrow mark. A reaction generally takes place in both forward and backward direction. The arrow mark facing towards the left side shows the reaction took place in reversible direction. If a reaction requires heat energy to proceed, the delta symbol is written above the arrow mark. The physical state of the reactants and the products are represented in parentheses after the chemical symbol. Look at these equations. In these equations, solid is represented as S, liquid as L, and gas as G. Upward arrow marks also shows it is gas, and downward arrow marks shows the precipitate, and AQ is aqueous solution. There are different types of reactions. One among them is exothermic reaction. A reaction in which large amount of heat is liberated is called as exothermic reaction. Look at this equation. Burning of carbon is an exothermic reaction. In this reaction, large amount of heat is liberated and the reaction proceeds in the forward direction. Photosynthesis is one of the very important endothermic reaction in which plants uses its chlorophyll and react with water and carbon dioxide present in the atmosphere to produce its own food. Thus, we can define endothermic reaction is a reaction in which heat energy is absorbed. What is a chemical equation? A chemical equation is the symbolic representation of a chemical reaction. It is represented in the form of short symbols and formulas. Chemical reaction. A chemical reaction is a change in which one or more substances or reactants react to form new substances with entirely different properties. Chemical equilibrium or dynamic equilibrium. In a chemical reaction, chemical equilibrium is a state in which there is no change in the concentration of both the reactant and the product further. The rate of the forward and reverse reactions are same at this condition. Look at this example. Production of ammonia by Haber's process. It is a good example to explain dynamic equilibrium. Rate of a reaction. The rate of a reaction is the speed of a reaction in which the reactants are converted into its products. It is also defined as a measure of change in concentration of the reactant or the change in concentration of products per unit time. In a simple way, rate of the reaction is given by minus d concentration of reactant by dt. What is coefficient? The number of reactants and the products are represented by coefficient. That is, the numbers returned to the left of each atoms or molecule in a chemical equation. Look at this equation. The left side you have your reactant. Number of molecules involved in the reactant side is equal to 2 plus 1. 2 molecule of hydrogen plus 1 molecule of oxygen. In the right hand side, that is your product side, you have 2 molecules of water. So, in general we can say 2 molecule of hydrogen reacts with 1 molecule of oxygen and produces 2 molecules of water. So, the numbers represents coefficient. Learning outcomes. Different type of changes with differences, terminology and symbols used in writing the chemical equations, definitions involved in writing chemical equations, identifying the chemical changes taking place in a reaction. After seeing the video, go through these practice apps. This is available in Google Learning app. Try and do your level best. These apps are used to revise the lessons. Next video is how to write a balanced chemical equation. Use the apps given here and video. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.